I never thought I would tell a wedding story about my own family, but my aunt made sure I had one. At our wedding shower, Aunt Marlene heard the date of my ceremony, stood in front of everyone, grabbed her purse, and said, "No one is going to your wedding." She was not invited. The next morning, the Facebook event for Uncle Victor's 65th birthday changed from an afternoon party to a 7-hour event starting at the time of my ceremony. I was waiting for Amelia's visa, counting every dollar, and trying to believe this was only a scheduling conflict. It wasn't. Marlene had turned my wedding into a family loyalty test. I was 34 when Amelia and I started measuring our future in government forms. We met 3 years earlier through an online strategy game. At first, she was only the British woman who kept correcting my terrible plans over voice chat. Then the calls lasted after the game ended. A year later, I flew to Manchester. 6 months after that, she came to Ohio. By the time I proposed, we had already spent more time in airports than most couples spend on dates. Amelia was 31, a user experience designer with a stable job, friends, and a life she had built without me. Moving to the United States meant giving up all of that. The K-1 process took 14 months. Forms, medical exams, interviews, fees that arrived whenever we thought we were finished paying. We had spent roughly $2,650 before buying her flight. The ticket would cost another $1,150, and the adjustment paperwork after marriage would add more. Neither of us came from money. I managed operations projects for an industrial equipment distributor. Amelia had savings, but moving countries meant she could not treat them like wedding money. We were paying for everything ourselves. Once she entered the United States, we would have a limited window to marry. Waiting until the following year was not an option. Only 2 people from her side could make the trip. One needed childcare and could travel only in August. The community hall in Millbrook had one affordable Saturday left that month. August 17th. $225 for the room. 28 guests. A short ceremony, lunch afterward, and a live stream for everyone in England who could not afford the flight. It was not the wedding we first imagined. It was the wedding that fit immigration rules, 2 countries, and the money we actually had. When we reserved the hall, I did not know Uncle Victor's birthday party would fall on the same date. And even after I learned, I thought a family could make room for both. By the time the visa interview was scheduled, our relationship had become a spreadsheet. Flights, filing fees, medical exams, certified copies, hotel nights, exchange rates. Every number had a deadline attached to it. I started taking extra shifts whenever I could. Amelia stopped replacing things unless they were completely unusable. She sold furniture she could not take with her and packed the rest of her life into labeled boxes in a flat she would soon leave behind. We cut the wedding down before anyone had the chance to call it small. No ballroom, no live band, no elaborate dinner. We chose folding chairs, catered sandwiches, grocery store flowers, and a community hall with old floors and harsh lighting. Amelia never complained. That somehow made me feel worse. She was the one leaving her job, her friends, her mother, and the city where she knew every bus route. I was staying in my country, in my house, 20 minutes from my parents. The ceremony was the one thing she asked not to lose. "I don't need a big wedding," she told me during one of our late-night calls. "I just needed to feel like we chose it." So I promised her it would. The wedding shower mattered because it was the first thing that felt celebratory. For months, every conversation about us had involved documents, money, or whether another envelope had arrived. My mother and Rachel planned a small co-ed paint and sip at Rachel's house. 16 people were invited. Painting was optional. There would be food, games, and a laptop open so Amelia could join from Manchester. I remember looking at the empty chair beside me before the guests arrived. Rachel had tied a white ribbon around it. That's hers, she said. For one afternoon, I wanted Amelia to feel present in the family she was moving across an ocean to join. Then Aunt Marlene called that morning. Marlene called less than 2 hours before the shower. I was helping Rachel move paint supplies onto her dining table when my phone buzzed. Amelia was already awake in Manchester, watching us through a video call propped against a bowl of lemons. Marlene did not say hello. "Lauren can't come," she said. "She has to work." "That's fine," I told her. "Tell her we understand." There was a pause long enough for me to think the call was over. "And we're not painting." I looked at the rows of blank canvases Rachel had spent the morning arranging. "Okay. Paige and I paint at home," she continued. "We're not paying $30 to do something we already do." The painting had always been optional. The invitation said that clearly. Nobody had asked her to justify skipping it. "There'll be food and other things to do," I said. "You're still welcome to come." Her tone sharpened. "I'm just letting you know before we get there. I don't want anyone pressuring us." "No one will." She sighed as though I had made the afternoon unnecessarily complicated, then ended the call. Amelia raised an eyebrow from the laptop screen. "Is she always like that?" I almost gave the answer our family had used for years. "That's just Marlene." Instead, I said, "She likes people to know when she disapproves." Rachel laughed without humor. "That's not even the first time she's complained about this." Earlier that week, Rachel had run into Marlene at the grocery store. Marlene asked what a paint and sip was, and Rachel explained that an artist would guide everyone through the same painting while we ate, talked, and had drinks. According to Rachel, Marlene stared at her as if she had described something indecent. "She made this face," Rachel said, pulling her mouth tight. Then she said, "People pay for that." I felt irritation rise, but I pushed it down. The shower was not a mandatory class. It was not a test of artistic ability. It was one relaxed afternoon after 14 months of paperwork and waiting. Still, I told myself Marlene's attitude did not matter. She could sit out the painting. She could complain quietly. As long as she did not make the day about herself, I was willing to let it go. That was the mistake. By the time everyone arrived, the house felt light. 12 people took seats around Rachel's dining table while the artist explained the painting. Amelia watched from the laptop, laughing whenever someone held up a brushstroke. Marlene and Paige stayed on the couch. When the artist asked whether they wanted canvases, Marlene smiled tightly. "No, we painted yesterday." She said it loudly enough for the room to hear. Nobody challenged her. The artist moved on, and within minutes the room was full of conversation, music, and the smell of food warming in the kitchen. The people who painted had fun. That seemed to bother Marlene most. At one point, Paige asked about the wedding. I explained that Amelia and I were having a small ceremony in August, then saving for a larger celebration the following year. Paige nodded. "That makes sense. Lauren did something similar. Courthouse first, party later." Marlene looked at her daughter, but said nothing. That moment stayed with me. Her own daughter understood that a small ceremony was not an insult to the family. It was what two people did when money, timing, and life gave them limited options. Marlene could have understood too. She had already decided not to. Near the end of the shower, Rachel brought out the gifts. My mother sat beside me. Amelia was still on the laptop, her face slightly blurred whenever the connection weakened. Aunt Rosa, Grandma Ruth, Marlene, Paige, and a few others remained in the room. After I opened the last package, I thanked everyone for coming. I told them the previous year had been exhausting, but Amelia's visa was finally close. Then I explained that we had reserved a small ceremony for August 17th. Only 28 people could attend, but we would live stream it for her family in England and anyone else who wanted to watch. Marlene stopped moving. "What date?" she asked. "August 17th. "What time?" "We're thinking around 12:30. Her expression changed before I finished speaking. "That's Victor's 65th birthday." "I know," I said. "His party starts later, so we're trying to schedule everything early enough." She stood so quickly that her chair scraped across the floor. "No one is going to your wedding." The room went silent. Amelia stared through the laptop screen. My mother looked as though she had misheard. Rosa immediately told Marlene that what she had said was cruel. Marlene grabbed her purse and walked outside to wait for her husband. I did not follow her. That was the part she never seemed to understand. She announced that nobody would attend a wedding she had never been invited to. Uncle Victor had been dealing with health problems that year. I will not share the details because they were his, but I understood why the family wanted his 65th birthday to matter. I was not close to him, yet I never wanted anyone to choose between his party and my wedding. The birthday celebration was originally scheduled from 3:30 until 7. Our plan was to begin the ceremony at 12:30, keep it under 30 minutes, and serve lunch afterward. Anyone invited to both events could leave the hall the next morning. I woke up expecting the anger to feel smaller. It did, until Rachel sent me a screenshot. A Facebook event had been created for Uncle Victor's birthday. The original plan had been an afternoon party beginning at 3:30. The new invitation said 12:30 to 7. Exactly when our ceremony was supposed to begin. I stared at the screen long enough for Amelia to ask what was wrong. We were on another video call, and she was packing books into a cardboard box behind her. I turned the phone toward the camera. Her expression changed immediately. "Wasn't it later before?" "Yes." "Did Marlene change it?" "I don't know." That was the honest answer. Marlene was helping organize the party, but Paige handled the Facebook page because her mother barely used social media. I could not prove who typed the new time. What I could prove was that the schedule had become more difficult less than 24 hours after Marlene told a room full of people that no one would attend my wedding. Then another notification appeared. Marlene had invited me to Victor's birthday party. I almost laughed. She had publicly dismissed my ceremony, helped turn the day into a competition, and then invited me to the event now overlapping it. I did not accept. I did not decline. I took a screenshot and closed the app. For years, my family had treated Marlene like weather. When she entered a room angry, everyone adjusted around her. People changed plans, softened their words, or apologized for things they had not done because it was easier than letting her explode. I was done adjusting. I decided she would become glass to me. I would see her at family gatherings if I had no choice, but I would not engage. She would not be invited to future milestones. She would not receive private updates about our marriage. And unless something changed drastically, she would not have access to any children Amelia and I might someday have. That decision was not revenge. It was the first boundary I had set without asking the family whether I was allowed to have one. 2 days later, Aunt Rosa called me during my lunch break. Her voice was low. "Noah, I think you need to know what's being said." According to Rosa, someone had been calling relatives and telling them I was deliberately excluding family from the wedding. The story was that Amelia and I had invited only the people we considered important, scheduled our ceremony on Victor's birthday without caring who it hurt, and expected everyone else to choose sides. The message being passed around was simple. If the whole family was not invited, nobody should attend. Rosa believed Marlene had started it. She said Marlene had spoken to Judith and at least one other relative after leaving the shower. I asked whether Rosa had heard Marlene say those exact words herself. She had not. That mattered to me. I was angry, but I did not want to accuse Marlene of something I could not prove. She had already said enough in front of witnesses. Still, the rumor was spreading. I had stayed quiet because I thought the truth would speak for itself. Instead, my silence had left an empty space, and someone else was filling it. By the time I returned to my desk, I had decided to tell the family everything. That evening, I sat at my kitchen table with every receipt, email, and calendar open in front of me. Amelia was 6 hours ahead in Manchester, but she stayed awake on video while I wrote. Boxes covered her floor. Unopened white tablecloths sat behind me. I did not want the post to sound angry. Angry people were easy to dismiss. I wanted dates, numbers, and facts. I opened the Carter family Facebook group and typed, "Hello, everyone. I am disappointed that I need to explain our wedding plans publicly, but several relatives have heard a version of this situation that is incomplete or untrue. I would rather give everyone the same facts than let rumors grow." I explained that Amelia and I had spent 3 years building a relationship across an ocean and 14 months navigating the K-1 visa process. The paperwork had already cost about $2,650 before her flight, with more fees waiting after the wedding. Once Amelia enters the United States, we will have a limited period in which to marry. We cannot simply postpone the ceremony until next year without disrupting the process we have already spent more than a year completing. I stared at that sentence. I had spent months proving our relationship to immigration officials, never expecting to defend our wedding to my own relatives. "Keep going," Amelia said. I explained that we were paying for everything ourselves. We had no ballroom, band, or formal dinner. The community hall cost $225 and was the only affordable Saturday space available in August. The guest list was 28 people. Not 28 favorites. 28 chairs. We could not invite every aunt, uncle, cousin, friend, and child. Amelia had only 2 guests coming from England, and one could travel only in August because of work and childcare. August 17th was the only date that aligned with the visa window, international travel, and the venue. Then I addressed Uncle Victor. We learned after reserving the hall that Victor's 65th birthday celebration would be held on the same date. We understand why this birthday matters, especially after his recent health problems. We have never asked anyone to skip his celebration. I included the original schedule. The party had been planned for 3:30. Our ceremony would begin at 12:30, last less than 30 minutes, and be followed by a simple lunch. Anyone invited to both could attend both. Then I explained that the Facebook event had changed to 12:30. I chose my words carefully. I do not know who entered the new time, and I will not accuse anyone of something I cannot prove. I can only say that the published schedule changed after our ceremony time became known. Marlene had done enough wrong without me assigning her things I could not prove. Then came the part that still made my jaw tighten. At our wedding shower, after I announced the date, Aunt Marlene stood and said, "No one is going to your wedding." Several relatives heard her. I did not yell, insult her, or ask anyone to choose sides. She left before I could explain the full situation. I remembered her chair scraping and Amelia frozen on the laptop. I added, Marlene was not on the list for the small ceremony because the guest list had already been limited before the shower. Her statement was still deeply hurtful because it treated attendance at our marriage as disloyalty toward Victor. I read it twice. "Too much?" I asked. "No," Amelia said. "It's true." I explained that we would live stream the ceremony for her family and for relatives who were not invited but still wanted to watch. Noon in Ohio was already evening in England. Moving it later would make participation harder for elderly relatives there. Then I wrote what I wanted Victor and his wife, Helen, to understand. I hope Victor has a wonderful birthday surrounded by people who love him. I would never ask anyone to boycott his party or treat his day as unimportant. I am asking for the same respect in return. I ended with one clear boundary. Our wedding will remain on August 17th at 12:30. We will not argue about the guest list, and we will not participate in a competition between two family events. Anyone with a genuine question may contact me directly. My cursor hovered over the post button. Publishing it meant the entire family would see the conflict. Marlene would see it. People who barely knew Amelia would be invited into the hardest part of our relationship. But they were already hearing a false version. I looked at the boxes behind Amelia. She had resigned from her job, given notice on her flat, and reduced her life to 2 suitcases and a folder of immigration papers. I was not going to let my family make her arrival look like something we had stolen from them. "Post it," she said. I clicked. For the first minute, nothing happened. Then the view count climbed. 3, 9, 17. A typing bubble appeared, vanished, then returned. The first comment came from Helen. "Thank you for explaining this. We know you tried to schedule around the party. Your wedding matters too." Then my father commented. Then Rachel. Then Grandma Ruth. Messages arrived from relatives asking for the live stream link, congratulating us, and admitting they had not understood the visa restrictions. Not everyone agreed with the small guest list. That was fine. Agreement was not what I needed. I needed the truth to exist somewhere. Marlene could not rewrite it without people seeing the difference. By midnight, the post was the most active thing in the family group. I expected anger. What came next was more complicated. By morning, the post had drawn more support than anger. Several relatives said they had not understood the visa timeline. Others asked for the livestream link. A cousin I barely spoke to wrote that 28 guests sounded reasonable when we were paying for everything ourselves. Helen's comment stayed near the top. She thanked me for considering Victor's birthday and said nobody in her household expected us to move our wedding. Victor did not want his celebration used to punish anyone. That mattered more than anything Marlene had said. Around noon, Paige called. Lauren was with her. "Is that Facebook post about Mom?" Paige asked. "Yes." A pause followed. Then Lauren said, "We need to tell you what we know." According to them, Marlene had barely discussed the shower after coming home. She told Lauren that hearing the date upset her, that she made a scene, and that she left because she was embarrassed. That surprised me. Embarrassment did not erase what she had done, but it meant she understood, at least privately, that her behavior had been wrong. Paige then explained the Facebook invitation. Marlene had asked her to create the event because she did not know how. Paige had built it several days before the shower and forgotten to publish it. She posted it the next morning. "Did you change the time?" I asked. Paige hesitated. I entered what Mom told me. Was it always 12:30? I honestly don't remember. I made the draft days ago. It was not satisfying, but it was possible. Then they addressed the rumor. Paige had been present when Marlene spoke to Aunt Judith. According to her, Marlene said she would spend the entire day with Victor and would not attend my ceremony. She did not say nobody else should attend. She was angry, Paige said. She complained about the guest list, but I never heard her tell anyone to boycott you. That left another possibility. Judith might have misunderstood Marlene or expanded the story because outrage made it more interesting. Neither option made Marlene innocent. She had still told a room full of witnesses that nobody would attend my wedding. She had still left before hearing the explanation, and she had not contacted me once afterward. But I could no longer claim she had definitely organized a smear campaign. "I'm not taking down the post," I said. Lauren answered, "We're not asking you to." They both apologized for their mother. Lauren called her words cruel. Paige said she would tell Marlene that she owed Amelia and me a direct apology. I appreciated that, but their apology was not hers. "I'm not ready to speak to her," I said. "I don't know when I will be." Neither daughter liked that answer. I heard it in the silence. Still, they respected it. Before the call ended, Paige said, "Mom cares about you. She reacts badly when she thinks family is being divided." "She created the division," I said. Paige did not argue. Afterward, Amelia asked whether the call changed anything. "It changed what I can prove," I told her, "not what happened." That distinction mattered. I did not want to become like Marlene, repeating only the version that made me look best. So when relatives asked, I corrected myself. I could confirm what Marlene had done at the shower. I could not confirm that she had personally told everyone to boycott the wedding. The truth was less satisfying than having one villain responsible for everything. But it was still the truth. And Marlene had already given me enough reason to keep my distance without inventing one more. I left the Facebook post where it was. Not because I wanted the argument to keep growing or needed Marlene humiliated. I left it because the rumor had already traveled farther than the truth. Even if Judith had exaggerated what Marlene said, someone had still been telling people that Amelia and I were dividing the family on purpose. Taking the post down would make it easier for the story to change again. I also stopped answering every message. Some relatives wanted details. Others wanted me to forgive Marlene before she had apologized. A few said family should be able to say hurtful things without being cut off forever. I understood the instinct to keep peace. What I no longer accepted was the idea that peace required me to stand still while someone kept taking shots at my life. Marlene's daughters had given me useful information, but they were still protecting their mother. That did not make them dishonest. It made them daughters. So I kept the part one could prove, corrected the part one could not, and stopped arguing about the rest. Marlene was not blocked yet. She was simply outside the circle of people who received updates, explanations, or access to Amelia. For the first time, distance did not feel cruel. It felt accurate. 12 days after our wedding, I was still finding pieces of it in ordinary places. A dried petal in the back seat of my car. A folded place card under the toaster. A smear of white frosting on the lid of a container Rachel had sent home with us. Amelia and I had been married less than 2 weeks, and I still caught myself looking at her left hand when she reached for something. The ceremony had been exactly what we needed. 28 chairs, grocery store flowers, a community hall that looked softer once the lights were dimmed. Amelia walked toward me with tears already in her eyes, and I nearly lost whatever composure I had left before she reached the first row. There was no scene. No one interrupted. No unexpected guests appeared. The people who attended our ceremony left afterward with enough time to reach Victor's party. Helen later sent us a photograph of him smiling over a birthday cake. For one day, both events existed without competing. I thought that meant the argument had finally run out of oxygen. Then my father called while I was at work. He had recently undergone a minor outpatient procedure, so I expected the conversation to be about his recovery. Instead, after answering my questions, he became quiet. "There's something Rosa heard," he said. "What now?" He hesitated because he knew I was done with it. Apparently, Marlene had told Aunt Judith that I had screamed at her during the wedding shower. According to her version, She had calmly mentioned Victor's birthday, and I had become aggressive. Then she added the detail that made me stop taking notes. Marlene claimed I was the one who said no one would attend Victor's party. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. It was almost impressive. She had taken her own words, her own anger, and her own exit from the room, then handed all of it back to me with our roles reversed. A room full of people had witnessed what happened. Amelia had watched through the laptop. Rosa had confronted Marlene before she left. Still, Marlene was telling the story as though witnesses were only an inconvenience. At first, I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the lie was so exact. She had not invented a new accusation. She had copied the scene and changed the name attached to the worst behavior. Amelia did not laugh when I told her. "She's still trying to make you defend yourself," she said. That was when I understood the point. The lie did not need to convince everyone. It only needed to keep my name moving through the family while Marlene remained the injured party. Our wedding had been peaceful. She could not change that. So she changed the story around it instead. The next evening, Rosa came to my parents' house carrying her phone and a look I had never seen on her before. Not anger. Disgust. My father was recovering in the recliner. Amelia sat beside me, sorting wedding photographs on her laptop. Rachel stood near the kitchen doorway with her arms folded. Rosa did not sit down. "Judith called me last night," she said. "She was drunk." The call had come shortly after 10. Judith began by demanding to know why Rosa had asked whether she attended Victor's birthday. Her son had recently been in the hospital, and she kept repeating that it was nobody's business why she had missed the party. Rosa said she had only asked because people noticed she was absent. That should have ended it. Instead, Judith started talking about me. "She said you were on her list," Rosa told me. "What list?" She never explained. She just kept saying it. According to Rosa, Judith slurred through the same accusations again and again. I had lied about Marlene. I had humiliated her sister with my Facebook post. If my father defended me, he could be on the list too. Then Judith claimed I had hidden the wedding date from him, which was why he had scheduled surgery on the same day. "That isn't true," I said. "His procedure had originally been scheduled for the week before our ceremony. Insurance delayed it until afterward. He had known the wedding date for months." Marlene knew that too. The story could only have reached Judith after someone removed the timeline and kept the version that made me look cruel. Rosa corrected her. Judith did not care. She moved to grief. Marlene had lost both parents. Victor was sick. Their family was under pressure. People needed to understand why Marlene was emotional. I understood grief. My father had buried people he loved and still managed not to attack his son's wedding. Amelia had left her mother and closest friends in another country without treating that pain as permission to insult anyone. Loss explained why someone might be fragile. It did not excuse cruelty. Rosa told Judith the same thing. That was when the call changed. Judith stopped talking about me and started talking about Amelia. Rosa's voice tightened. She said if she ever saw Amelia, she was going to hit her. The room went completely still. Amelia's hands froze above the keyboard. I looked at Rosa. Exact words. She said she'd punch her in the face. I told her she would not touch your wife, and if she tried, she would have to get through me first. Judith had never met Amelia. She had never spoken to her. Amelia had not written the Facebook post, confronted Marlene, changed a party time, or repeated a rumor. Her only involvement was marrying me. I had laughed when Marlene lied about the shower. I did not laugh now. Was anyone else there? No. Did you record it? Rosa shook her head. That meant it was a reported threat, not documented evidence. I was not going to turn one drunken call into a courtroom fantasy. But I was not going to ignore it. I wrote down the date, time, and wording while Rosa still remembered it. I asked her to save the call log and send me a screenshot. Amelia closed her laptop. She doesn't even know me. I know. What am I supposed to have done? Nothing. That was the ugliest part. Judith did not hate Amelia for an action. She hated the role Amelia played in Marlene's version of events. My wife had become a symbol of the wedding Marlene could not control. Rosa said that after the threat, Judith broke down crying about her son's health. Rosa acknowledged that fear and still told her the threat was unacceptable. The call ended without an apology. My father looked older than he had that morning. "This is enough," he said. He did not tell me what to do. He did not need to. I had tolerated Marlene's judgment because the family called it personality. I had tolerated the scene because people said she was emotional. I had corrected the rumor carefully because I did not want to accuse her unfairly. I had even left the door open for an apology. That door closed the moment defending Marlene required threatening my wife. I called neither woman. I sent no angry message. I told my parents, Rachel, and Rosa that Marlene and Judith were no longer welcome at our home. They were not to receive details about our schedule, honeymoon, or future children. If either approached Amelia, we would document it. If a threat was repeated directly or in writing, we would contact the appropriate authorities. Anyone who talked about putting hands on my wife lost access to both of us. Not for a week. Not until the family calmed down. Completely. There was nothing left to discuss with either of them anymore. Marlene had turned my wedding into a loyalty test. Judith had answered it for me. That night, after Amelia went to bed, I opened a message to Marlene. I wrote that she had embarrassed herself at the shower, lied about what happened, and allowed other people to turn my marriage into a target. I wrote that Judith's threat had ended whatever relationship remained between us. The message was honest. It was also exactly what Marlene wanted. One paragraph she could screenshot. One sentence she could crop. One angry word she could show the family as proof that I had always been the aggressor. So I did not send it. I saved Rosa's call log, copied the dates, blocked Judith, and removed Marlene from places where she could see our plans. Then I deleted the draft. Silence did not mean forgiveness. It meant I was finished supplying material to people who rewrote every conversation. 2 weeks later, Amelia and I left for our honeymoon. At the airport, she asked whether I regretted not giving Marlene one final chance to explain herself. I looked at my wife, standing beside 2 suitcases after crossing an ocean to build a life with me. No, I said. She had every chance before the threat. For years, I thought setting a boundary required one last speech dramatic enough to make the other person understand. It does not. Sometimes the clearest boundary is the door that never opens again. Marlene wanted my wedding to become a family loyalty test. I chose my marriage. And for the first time since the shower, I stopped checking who approved.